Sleeping Beauty. Once upon a time there lived a king and queen who had no children. They dreamed of having a child of their own, and when a little princess was finally born, they decided to entrust her to the care of kind fairy. "I will invite all the magic fairies of our kingdom to the christening of the princess," exclaimed the king joyfully. As planned, 12 kind fairies were invited to the christening. After the festive dinner, each of them gave a little princess a magical gift. "You will be beautiful," said the first fairy. "Tender and kind," added another. One by one, the kind fairies gave the princess the best magical gifts in the world. When 11 fairies had already presented their gifts, an angry voice was heard from outside. "Ha! Do you think I'm too old to cast spells? I'll show you!" Guests heard a screeching sound as a very old witch who had been forgotten by everyone appeared in the room. She slowly approached the crib. "When the princess turns 15, she will prick her finger on a spindle and die," she pronounced the curse and disappeared from the palace. The king was devastated. "Oh, how could we forget about her? What do we do now?" he asked. "Perhaps I can help you," he heard a thin voice. It was the 12th fairy. "I cannot remove this curse," she said, "but I can diminish its power. The princess will prick her finger, but she will not die. She will fall asleep and sleep for 100 years." The king and queen were very grateful to the 12th fairy, but they didn't want anything bad to happen to their daughter. They did everything they could to ensure that there was not a single spinning wheel left in their kingdom. The princess grew up and became more and more beautiful with each passing year. Of course, no one wanted to harm such a lovely and delicate girl. Early one morning, on the day of her 15th birthday, the princess went for a walk around the palace and climbed up a tall tower that she had never been in before. She saw a wooden door in front of her. The girl opened the door and found herself in a small room where an old woman was spinning wool. "Good morning," said the princess. "What are you doing here?" "I'm spinning," replied the old woman. "Do you want to try it?" And she handed the princess a spindle. The princess took the spindle and immediately pricked her tender finger. At that moment, the princess fell into a deep sleep. The old witch's curse had come true. And at the same moment, all the people in the palace fell asleep as well. In the vast hall, sitting on golden thrones, the king and queen fell asleep, along with the lords, court ladies, palace guards and servants. A silence descended upon the palace. Years passed, and a dense thicket of thorny bushes grew around the palace walls. The living hedge became so thick that only the flag on the highest of the palace towers could be seen from the outside. The story of the Sleeping Beauty spread throughout the kingdom and even beyond. Everyone in the area called her the Sleeping Beauty. Many princes came to the palace in hope of saving the princess, but none of them managed to make their way through the prickly bushes. Almost 100 years had passed since the princess pricked her finger. At that time, a handsome young prince from a distant kingdom happened to pass by these lands. On his journey, he met an old man who remembered the story told to him by his grandfather. So the prince learned the legend of Sleeping Beauty. "I won't rest until I see her and awaken her," he vowed. Seeing the impenetrable thickets of tall and terrifyingly prickly bushes, he was initially at a loss. But when he drew his sword, the thorns unexpectedly turned into beautiful roses, and the bushes parted before him, allowing him to pass. Beyond the gates, everything was plunged into sleep. The dogs slept in the yard. The guards slept at their posts. Even the pigeons on the roof were asleep, and not a single sound disturbed the silence. The prince circled the entire palace. He found the sleeping king, queen, and their servants. Finally, reached the last room and the tallest tower, he saw Sleeping Beauty. The prince looked in amazement at her beautiful face. "I would give my whole kingdom to have you wake up and become my wife," he whispered. After that, he leaned over and gently kissed the sleeping girl. As soon as the prince kissed Sleeping Beauty, she opened her eyes and smiled. It seemed to her that she had been in love with him all her life. Joyful cries rang throughout the palace. Everyone woke up and rubbed their eyes after a long sleep. They still couldn't believe that the evil spell had lost its power. Sleeping Beauty and her prince announced their wedding. This time, the king made sure not to leave anyone out and invited everyone to the wedding feast. The Rabbit Reader read for you. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Thank you for watching.